Okay, lighting is okay. Sound, I know it's echoey, but I want to film in this outfit with these earrings on, so I'm just gonna film. Where should I be looking? Me, camera, me, camera. My dear viewer. Hey guys, it's Bunnie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm here filming a video for you. I did have another video in mind previously that is still sitting in my camera roll. That's like 30 minutes of unedited footage. So why not film another one, right? This one I feel like is important because it's kind of a big question that goes around in the age regression and little community. Kind of a big question in the age regression and little community. I want to tell somebody I'm an age regressor. How do I go about that? Well, number one, I applaud you for wanting to confide in somebody about this, especially if you know it's important to you. And I applaud your honesty. It is so important. I've stressed that in previous videos. It's so important to talk to people about it instead of just lying your way around things, because lying will end up bad for you at some point. Trust me. So I'm making this video, but I'm also making a follow-up video for a perspective of somebody who was just told that somebody is an age regressor. I think both perspectives are important to have, and I really want that to be out there. Hopefully this helps you if you are thinking about telling somebody. It's one of those things where this is not a grocery list. This is not something you have to follow in its exact, but these are some of the things that have worked for me. And I think it'll help establish trust between you and the person that you're telling. And I think they will also really appreciate your honesty, whether they understand it or even accept it or not. Go in with an open mind and allow them to go in with an open mind with things as well. Let's get started. My foot's asleep. My goodness gracious. Okay, so if you're thinking about telling somebody that you are an age regressor or a little, one of the most important things to do is kind of to establish what it is. For me personally, when I told my friends and other people about it, I kind of start off with, have you heard of the concept of age regression? Some people have said, that they're kind of familiar with it, and some people just have no idea, and that's okay. If they've never heard of it before, my encouragement to you is to give them a good, solid definition of it. I would, even if it means looking it up, sending something to them, something from professional, from maybe a medical standpoint, or at least a psychological standpoint of what age regression is, because age regression can be symptomatic, which means it's more of a symptom of something bigger, or it can be used as a coping mechanism to cope with things that have already happened. Whatever it looks like for you, it's important to establish that up front with them and to be like, maybe not yours personally, but just a definition of what age regression is and what it can look like between people. So then their next question might be like, whether they say it out loud or in their head, oh, well, why are you telling me about this if they haven't kind of picked up that you do this yet? And this is when it would be best to reveal, okay, well, I do this and here's why. So now that you've kind of established what age regression is, what it can look like, you need to establish, you don't need to, but you might want to establish what it looks like for you personally, as well as in whatever detail you're comfortable with, why you do it, which can kind of be intertwined with what it looks like for you. And like I said, describe it in comfortable detail. You are under no obligation to tell them every single detail of your life. You can just tell them, hey, I age regress. Can I speak? Can I speak English? I age regress because of some things that have happened in my past, or some things that I'm healing from, or my therapist told me, whatever that may look like for you. It doesn't have to be in extensive detail, obviously, but that's up to your discretion about how much you're comfortable sharing to whoever you're disclosing this to. Did I get a bug bite? I think a good next step, or at least one of the steps, is to assure this person why you're telling them. And a lot of the times it's because you trust them. You want them to know about it. For me personally, I want them to know about it because I trust them, because I know they're my friends or whoever. But at the same time, I also would want them to be aware in case it were to happen around them, whether that be voluntarily or involuntarily. There have been instances where I've regressed around my friends, and I have been really grateful for my past self for letting them know about it beforehand so that I didn't have to try and explain it or have somebody else who already knew explain it to them. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's a good precautionary, especially if you're prone to do it around certain people, or if it's sometimes involuntary for you, or even just in case, or even just because you want to. It may never happen around them, but it's still okay for them to know, just because, like I said, even if it doesn't happen around them, they're still going to appreciate your honesty at least to my belief. I would hope that they would appreciate your honesty and just appreciate the fact that you wanted them to know about it, and that they hello, and that you trust them with the information that you're giving them. So at this point, you're gonna wanna start kind of reading the room, or at least reading the person you're telling. If they are starting to become visibly uncomfortable, you can stop whenever you feel is necessary or whenever they say to stop or whatever. Again, it's very situational, but you're going to want them, you're going to want to read them. You're going to want to read your emotions where they're at, because you have to understand, we have to understand, this is a very new concept, or at least a very unknown concept for most people. It's not a very popular thing, at least as mainstream as in our community, but it's important to kind of let them feel what they need to feel and think about what they need to think about and process what they need to process about it. Because for some people, it can be uncomfortable. For some people, it can just be really unknown, or they just don't want to hear about it, or they're upset, or whatever that might be. It's okay for the other person not to be suddenly, oh, this is great, this is perfect, totally fine. Because like I said, this may seem strange to some people, and we have to understand that that might just come with it. You know what I mean? So it's important not to get too upset at somebody if they don't know or don't understand or really aren't too open to it at that moment. Because for some people, they may need to think about it. They may need to be like, all right, well, thank you for giving me this information, but you know, there's nothing I can do about it right now. That is okay. Let them feel what they need to feel, as long as you're both safe. Now, at this point, if you are reading the room, you're reading the person that you're telling or the people that you're telling, and they do seem intrigued and, you know, or they're still open and they're still actively listening to you. If you want to, you can tell them about, you know, triggers, what causes it, what helps, what doesn't help in situations like that, because there have been some cases, and there's some cases where people are like, okay, well, if it were to happen around me, you know, what should I do? And again, that's going to be something for you to determine. I don't know what your regression looks like, but for me, with my friends, if they ask me something like that, I say, oh, you know, I can handle it on my own. You know, I've been regressing by myself for many years. I can handle it on my own. So if you're not comfortable with being around me, that's completely fine. But if you happen to be around, you know, just make sure I'm all right. You know what I mean? Blah, 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 whatever that might look like. That's for me. For you, it might be different. But something I have to stress so much, and I still to this day stress this with my friends, is that nobody is obligated to care for you. I know it might be, I don't know if that's hard to hear or not, but nobody is under obligation to be your caregiver, to be your babysitter, to be involved with it as a whole. This is my personal thing, and nobody is required, whether they know about it or not, to take care of me or to do this for me. Now, my friends are so wonderful, and a lot of the time they really are willing to help me, and they've expressed that, and I am so grateful to God for being blessed with such amazing friends. But not everybody is like that, especially if you're not telling a friend. The dynamics are going to be different depending on who you're telling, but at the same time, it is so, so, so important. And tell them this as well, that it is not an obligation for them to be a carer. You just want them to know about this information. And even if you want them to be a caregiver, it's okay to have that, but you don't push that from the start. Don't push that. Don't be like, oh, you know, I really need a caregiver. It would really be nice if you could do this for me. Or like, I really want you to do this, blah, blah, blah. Once you read the room and you think that that's not something they might be interested in, and even if they are, there is no obligation for them to be carers for us. It's so important to go into this. That's all part of having an open mind with going into this. It is no obligation. Just, it's important to choose wording just so it's really more informational instead of implying that they need to do something for you, because that's really not what it's about, at least not for me. So at this point, if whoever's telling is still interested or they really have any questions, be open to it. Like I said earlier on, this is a new concept for them most likely. And even if it's not, they still might have questions. Even if they've heard of it in some psychology class years ago, they still might have questions about it, and some people might not. Some people may just take the information you gave them and might thank you or might react some other way. If they ask for information, you know, you can either answer it yourself or you can direct them to another site, whether it's a YouTube channel or somebody else. I'm just kidding. I'm no professional, but if you want to direct them to more sites, encourage them if they want to research more on the topic. Like I said, redirect them to more professional sources, because I'm not too professional. I speak off of experience most of the time. As grateful as I am that so many of you use me as a resource, I am not a professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. My foot's asleep again. If you want them to get some more, I guess, professional information or more well thought out information, redirect them to different sites and different research and things like that, just about the topic. And as I mentioned, I briefly touched on it earlier, give them time to process. If they don't ever ask you about it again and they just know about it, that's fine. It's okay. If they don't want anything to do with it, if it makes them uncomfortable, or if it's something that they're just okay letting you do in your own world and just not being involved in it, that is okay. That is their comfort level. They just don't want to be involved with it. That's okay. If somebody else is like, oh my gosh, yeah, like that's amazing, I will totally help you out with that, or I totally accept that, that's also great. Boundaries, regardless of how anybody reacts, are of utmost importance for both parties. If someone reacts negatively and someone is like, listen, I'm really uncomfortable with this and I really don't like it, and if for some reason it's harmful to the relationship, it might happen. It's not, I don't think it's that often that it happens, but again, I can't speak on that because I have not told anybody that I think would react that way. It's up to your comfort level. But as I've mentioned in previous videos and even earlier, lying about it, lying is never the answer. Lying will never get you to where you want to be. It's so much better to be truthful. Even if somebody reacts negatively, you can rest assured that you told them the truth, and that is still something that you can hold to yourself. You know what I mean? You said what you said, you did what you could, and if they reacted negatively, that's on them. Every situation is going to be a little bit different. I can kind of, I guess, give a little bit of an example of how I have told people. Again, it depends on the person, how well I know them, but I've told a lot of my close friends already that they know about it, and some of them help me out with it, and that's great and fantastic. Some of them I've mentioned briefly and they just aren't involved with it or don't ask about it. That's also perfectly fine. You know what I mean? I respect that. I understand. So if I were to sit down with somebody and start talking to them about this, I might be like, have you heard of the term age regression? And they might say, yeah, I think I've heard of it in passing before, but I'm really not too knowledgeable about it. And some people may be like, I have never heard of that in my life. And some people in rare occasions may even be like, yeah, I'm so totally familiar with that. Those are all okay answers. Or how they respond is then kind of going to impact how you respond. So if someone says like, oh yeah, like I've heard about it before, but I'm not too familiar with it, that's when you might start saying, you know, telling them a little bit about what it is. Like age regression can be a coping mechanism or it can be kind of a symptom. What it is, it's basically when somebody reverts to a younger state of mind and kind of acts that way, maybe likes more childish things to help them cope or to help them relive parts of their childhood, to help them heal, whatever you want to define that as. And then, you know, if you want to look up a definition, that's more than fine too. Someone says, yeah, I've totally heard of it. Then you can kind of skip that part and be like, okay, well, great. So glad you've heard of it because I do that. And if someone is like, I have absolutely no idea, then that's when you might want to explain a little bit more in depth. Or you can just be like, okay, well, before I go on, I am an age regressor and here's what that means. Here's what it looks like for me. Depending on how you want to do it, but it can be anything like that. Let's say you've given them a good little definition of what age regression is, and maybe you've told them already. And if you haven't at this point, it would probably be good to be like, okay, well, I am an age regressor and I age regress because I have had some things happen to me in my past. It's kind of a coping strategy, and it also helps me to relive some good parts of my childhood to help me heal my inner child, essentially. I mean, and that's my definition, or maybe a part of my definition personally. Yours might look different than that, and that's okay. Again, sharing details that you are comfortable with sharing to them. You're under no obligation to tell them every part of your life that would cause you to regress. Like I said, some things have happened to me in the past, and this is just kind of how I heal, how I relive good parts of my childhood, and it helps me to be happy. And then at this point, they're like, oh. Some people might be like, okay, yeah, that's really interesting, actually. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. Some people might have been like, girl, that's obvious. And some people might be like, what? And all of these answers are going to vary, but it's something that might happen. Hello, hair. How I might say it personally to somebody, it's like, okay, well, I'm telling you this because in case it ever were to happen around you, then this is what it might look like for me, and then I would talk about maybe what it looks like. Or I really just wanted you to know about this because it's an important part of my own personal life and I trust you with the information. You know, a response like that. And some people at this point may be like, that's really interesting. And they may ask some questions, or people may say, you know, that's really cool. Thank you for trusting me with that. And, you know, if I were to describe what that looked like for me, if it were to happen, then it's important for me after that to say, and I just want you to know that if it were to ever happen around you, you are under no obligation to, like, I guess, care for me or whatever. I do it on my own a lot, and I know how to handle myself. I have pretty good control of it, and I'm usually fine, and it doesn't happen around people extremely often, but it's important for you to know that information and just know that you're never obligated to, it sounds kind of bad to say obligated to help me, but you're never obligated to care for me or do anything you are uncomfortable with. I am okay, and that I can assure you of. That part right there is very important because you don't quite know what people are thinking at that point unless they say something. So just to clear up, it's like, all right, I just want to tell you this because it may happen or I trust you with it, but that doesn't mean you have to do something. And I've had people ask me questions at this point or just thank me for telling them, and usually things go fine. And if they ask about it again at some point, great. If it happens around somebody that may not be too comfortable with it, don't try and involve people who really don't want to be involved. Like I said, again, that's okay. Or just, consent is important too. If you want to tell somebody who knows, it's like, hey, I kind of feel this coming on, and they may respond with something, or you could just make your own boundary and be like, all right, I'm going to go step away, just take some time for myself, and then decide from there. There are so many different variables. There are so many different outcomes and so many different ways you can do this. It's going to be personal to you, and it's going to be really important for you to know who you're talking to, because the dynamic is going to depend on who you're talking to. The response will depend on who you're talking to. Just please stay safe. And if it's something that you truly think might be unhealthy for you to tell somebody, or it might be just not the best option for you to tell somebody, my advice to you still stands. Do not lie about things. It's not like you don't have to tell them everything, or you don't have to tell them that you do it. It can be your own personal thing, but just don't lie if something were to happen. Please, that is my one request to you, is not to lie. Trust me. So that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going at some point to be making a follow-up video for people who are told that somebody age regresses and what they can do to respond. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm so sorry for my sporadic updates. You know how I am. I am still on Instagram, which is linked in the description, or I just have it typed out in the description, whatever. I am very shortly changing it to 18 plus, I believe, if I haven't already by the time this is uploaded. That is just for my own personal comfort, because things have kind of changed in terms of how I view age regression online, and I am more comfortable interacting with adults online than I am with younger people and minors like that. So thank you guys for understanding. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you need anything, feel free to leave a comment down below, and if you're 18 plus, feel free to follow me on Instagram or reach out whenever that may happen. But yeah, God loves you and so do I. Have a good one. Bye-bye.